On the tab it says, "Hi, you." And on the side of the can it says, "Fancy meeting you here." It's the end of the season. It always goes way too quickly. But I'm excited for these playoffs. I think these playoffs are going to be really good. And there were a lot of win and in scenarios this week. So it made for some interesting games. Okay, in the AFC, among the teams that win and in scenarios, the Browns, the Dolphins, the Ravens, and the Titans all had, if they won, they were in the playoffs. And then the Colts needed a win and then either a loss from any one of those teams. So the Dolphins lost, the Colts won, so the Colts, Browns, Ravens, and Titans all get in the playoffs. In the AFC, in the NFC, the Bears, if they won, they were in. If they lost, they needed Arizona to lose, which Arizona did lose. San Francisco almost beat Seattle in a really good game. And Washington, Philly, that was drama because the Giants having beaten the Cowboys earlier that day, needed the Eagles to beat Washington in order to get in the playoffs. But drama late in that game in the fourth quarter as well. Let's just get into it. Alright, the Buffalo Bills defeated the Miami Dolphins 56-26. Get this pain out of the way. Tua Tagovailoa was 35 of 58 for 361 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions for a QBR of 23.3 and a rating of 62.5. Not a good game from Tua. It's not going to be good when he has to throw the ball 58 times, 58 pass attempts. So they were playing from behind the whole game, and it was not a good day for Miami or a Miami fan. Ahmed carried the rock 6 times for 29 yards and a touchdown. Devontae Parker had 7 receptions for 116 yards. For the Buffalo Bills, Josh Allen was 18 of 25 for 224 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception for a QBR of 88 and a rating of 122.3. Williams carried the rock 12 times for 63 yards and 2 touchdowns. Davis had 2 receptions for 107 yards and a touchdown. Stephon Diggs had 7 receptions for 76 yards. Buffalo improves to 13-3, and Miami falls to 10-6 and just misses the playoffs at 10-6. It was tough. I thought that, they might lose. I wasn't sure what Buffalo was going to do with their starters. They played them for the first half, and that was enough to get it done. Buffalo, to me, is between, in the AFC, the playoffs is between Buffalo and Kansas City. The AFC is loaded, though. Alright, so now the question for Miami becomes, is Tua the guy? Is Tua the guy long term? And I think that it's too early to say that he's not. I mean, he's only started, he started 8 games, I think. Without an offseason, without a real, offseason. So, Miami's got the 3rd pick. Do they think about quarterback? I think that Tua will be fine. I think they'll be fine. Like I said, no offseason. Get him a full offseason this year and see what happens next year. The defense is going to be back. The defense is going to be great. Brian Flores, I think that they should draft a tackle. I think they should draft that tackle from Oregon with the 3rd pick and try to develop Tua a little bit more. They might look at a quarterback though. There are a couple quarterbacks in this draft. The 3rd pick, they'll have the 3rd pick from Houston and then the 18th pick as well. So 2 first-round picks. So because the Dolphins lost to Buffalo, then if they still wanted to get in the playoffs, they needed either the Browns, the Ravens, or the Colts to lose, which obviously none of them did. The Cleveland Browns headed to the playoffs. They defeated the Pittsburgh Steelers 24-22. Pittsburgh rested some starters. Mason Rudolph got the start for Pittsburgh at quarterback. He was 22 of 39 for 315 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception for a QBR of 78.8 and a rating of 89.2. James Conner carried the rock 9 times for 37 yards. Chase Claypool had 5 receptions for 101 yards and a touchdown. For the Browns, Baker Mayfield was 17 of 27 for 17 of 27 for 196 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions for a QBR of 82.1 and a rating of 97.1. Nick Chubb carried the rock 14 times for 108 yards and a touchdown. Higgins had 2 receptions for 55 yards. Landry had 5 receptions for 51 yards. Cleveland improves to 11-5. Pittsburgh falls to 12-4. They're both in the playoffs. They play each other in the playoffs this week. The Browns head coach tested positive for COVID. He's not going to be coaching the game. I think they said the special teams coordinator is going to be the acting head coach, and then the offensive coordinator is going to be calling the plays. So Cleveland and Pittsburgh are both in and facing each other again next week in the first round of the playoffs. The New Orleans Saints defeated the Carolina Panthers 33-7. They had to win to keep their hopes alive to get the number 1 seed. They needed to win and they needed Green Bay to lose, but that didn't happen. So even though they got the dub, they're going to be the 2 seed because Green Bay also won. For the Saints, Drew Brees was 22 of 32 for 201 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions for a QBR 59.2 and a rating of 116.8. Ty Montgomery carried the rock 18 times for 105 yards. Emmanuel Sanders had 9 receptions for 63 yards and a touchdown. For the Panthers, Teddy Bridgewater was 13 of 23 for 176 yards, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions for a QBR of 23.3 and a rating of 44.8. Smith carried the rock 10 times for 40 yards and a touchdown. Curtis Samuel had 7 receptions for 118 yards. The running back room for the Saints was all close contacts for COVID, so they didn't have Alvin Kamara. Nobody. They didn't have anybody. That's why they had Montgomery in there getting 18 carries for him in this game, but it didn't matter. Carolina's a little bit rough this year, so New Orleans locks up the 2nd seed with that 33-7 victory over Carolina. The Baltimore Ravens defeated the Cincinnati Bengals 38-3. Baltimore is hot right now. I know it's against Cincinnati, but the last 5 games, Baltimore has been playing really well. Lamar Jackson was 10 of 18 for 113 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception for a QBR of 90.2 and a rating of 91. J.K. Dobbins carried the rock 13 times for 160 yards and 2 touchdowns. They ran the ball all over Cincinnati. Lamar Jackson carried it 11 times for Gus Edwards carried it 12 times for 60 yards. As a team, the Baltimore Ravens rushed the ball 54 times for 404 yards. 404 yards rushing. When you run the ball for 400 yards, you're gonna win the game, like almost guaranteed to win that game. Receiving, Miles Boykin had 1 reception for 43 yards and a touchdown. Marquise Hollywood Brown had 5 receptions for 41 yards and 2 touchdowns. Baltimore getting that run game going. That's gonna be tough to stop in the playoffs. For Cincinnati, Allen was 6 of 21 for 48 yards, no touchdowns, and 2 interceptions for a QBR of 3.1 and a rating of 0. Williams carried the rock 4 times for 74 yards. Carter had 1 reception for 21 yards. Tough day for Cincinnati. They fall to 4-11-1, and Baltimore improves to 11-5. Alright, moving on here. The New York Giants defeated the Dallas Cowboys 23-19. For the Dallas Cowboys, Andy Dalton was 29 of 47 for 243 yards. No touchdowns, 1 interception for a QBR of 42.8 and a rating of 66.2. He was also the leading rusher, carrying the rock 7 times for 48 yards. Zeke only had 42 yards on 14 carries. He did get in the end zone though. Schultz had 7 receptions for 70 yards. For the New York Giants, Daniel Jones, Danny Dimes. He was 17 of 25 for 229 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception for a QBR of 34, and a rating of 106.9. Wayne Gallman carried the rock 11 times for 65 yards. Sterling Shepard had 8 receptions for 112 yards and a touchdown. The Giants improved to 6-10, and the Cowboys fall to 6-10. Both teams missed the playoffs though because Washington won the division Sunday night against the Eagles. Next up, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defeated the Atlanta Falcons 44-27. For Tampa Bay, Tom Brady was 26 of 41 for 399 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception for a QBR of 79.1 and a rating of 117.8. Ronald Jones carried the rock 12 times for 78 yards and a touchdown. Antonio Brown had 11 receptions for 138 yards and 2 touchdowns. Chris Godwin had 5 receptions for 133 yards and 2 touchdowns. For the Atlanta Falcons, Matt Ryan was 29 of 44 for 265 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions for a QBR of 75.9 and a rating of 97.3. Hill carried the rock 9 times for 94 yards. Gage had 9 receptions for 91 yards and a touchdown. Tampa Bay improves to 11-5 and Atlanta falls to 4-12. Tampa Bay will face the Washington football team in the first round of the playoffs. The Green Bay Packers defeated the Chicago Bears. The Green Bay Packers defeated the Chicago Bears 35-16 to lock up the number 1 seed in the NFC. Aaron Rodgers locking up the MVP too, in my book. 19 of 24 for 240 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions for a QBR of 93.2 and a rating of 147.9. Have a day. Aaron Jones carried the rock 11 times for 42 yards and a touchdown. Marquez Valdez-Scantling had 2 receptions for 87 yards and a touchdown. Devontae Adams had 6 receptions for 46 yards and a touchdown. For the Chicago Bears, Mitchell Trubisky. He was 33 of 42 for 252 yards, no touchdowns, 1 interception for a QBR of 85.9 and a rating of 81.7. David Montgomery carried the rock 22 times for 69 yards and a touchdown. David Montgomery is a baller. Not a great game from him, but he's really good. Mooney had 11 receptions for 93 yards. So Chicago gets into the playoffs because the Rams beat the Cardinals. So even though they lost this game, they fall to 8-8. They still get in the playoffs. Green Bay locks up the number 1 seed, as I said, at 13-3. It's gonna be tough to beat the Packers. Jaguars, I think, this year in the postseason. They're my favorite in NFC for sure right now. The Indianapolis Colts defeated the Jacksonville Jaguars 28 to 14. 28 to 14. For Indianapolis, Phillip Rivers was 17 of 27 for 164 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception for a QBR of 41.1 and a rating of 76.8. Jonathan Taylor carried the rock 30 times for 253 yards and 2 touchdowns. Have a day. Jonathan Taylor put the team on his back in this game. Nyheim Hines had 6 receptions for 50 yards. For the Jacksonville Jaguars, Glennon was 26 of 42 for 261 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions for a QBR of 32.6 and a rating of 95.4. Ogunbowale had 14 carries for 50 yards, and Conley had 7 receptions for 87 yards. The Indianapolis Colts improved to 11-5 and get the last spot in the playoffs thanks to the Dolphins losing. And Jacksonville falls to 1-15, the worst record in the league, and they get the number 1 pick. The Los Angeles Chargers defeated the Kansas City Chiefs. Kansas City was resting Patrick Mahomes, so it wasn't really anything. They already had the 1 seed all locked up, but Justin Herbert did ball out 22 of 31 for 302 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions for a QBR of 86.1 and a rating of 134.1. Jackson carried the rock 9 times for 72 yards. Williams had 6 receptions for 108 yards and a touchdown. For Kansas City, Henne was 23 of 32 for 218 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions for a QBR of 37.7 and a rating of 111.2. Thompson carried the rock 14 times for 45 yards and a touchdown. He also had 7 receptions for 65 yards and a touchdown. Kansas City falls to 14-2, and the Chargers improved to 7-9. The Los Angeles Rams defeated the Arizona Cardinals 18-7. Jared Goff did not play in this game. Remember, he's got a broken thumb, so Walford got the start for LA, and he was 22 of 38 for 231 yards, no touchdowns, 1 interception for a QBR of 74.7 and a rating of 64.7. He also carried the rock 6 times for 56 yards. Cam Akers had 4 receptions for 52 yards. For the Arizona Cardinals, Kyler Murray got injured in this game. He was out for a while. He did come back in the game, but he was not effective. 8 of 11 for 87 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions for a QBR of 60.8 and a rating of 95.6. And then only 3 yards rushing for Kyler as well. Kenyon Drake carried the rock 10 times for 36 yards. Arnold had 3 receptions for 46 yards. The Rams improved to 10-6, and the Cardinals fall to 8-8 and miss the playoffs. The Seattle Seahawks defeated the San Francisco 49ers 26-23 in a close game. Russell Wilson was 20 of 36 for 181 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions for a QBR of 79.7 and a rating of 87.9. Chris Carson carried the rock 11 times for 44 yards. Tyler Lockett had 12 receptions for 90 yards and 2 touchdowns. For San Francisco, CJ Beathard had I cannot talk today. CJ Beathard was 25 of 37 for 273 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, for a QBR of 67.7 and a rating of 98.1. Wilson carried the rock 20 times for 76 yards and a touchdown. Kendrick Bourne had 5 receptions for 76 yards. Seattle improves to 12-4, and San Francisco falls to 6-10. The Tennessee Titans defeated the Houston Texans 41-38. A close game here too. For the Titans, Ryan Tannehill was 18 of 27 for 216 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions for a QBR of 86.1 and a rating of 103.3. Derrick Henry carried the rock 34 times for 250 yards and 2 touchdowns. Have a day, Derrick Henry. A.J. Brown had 10 receptions for 151 yards and a touchdown. Big big games from Tannehill, Derrick Henry, and A.J. Brown. Tannehill also carried the rock 7 times for 38 yards and 2 touchdowns. Those 3 really carried the squad. 41-38 in a close game. They won on a last-second field goal. Deshaun Watson for the Texans was 28 of 39 for 365 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception for a QBR of 63.0 and a rating of 115.9. I believe he's got the most yards in the league this year. David Johnson carried the rock 14 times for 84 yards and a touchdown. Brandon Cooks had 11 receptions for 166 yards and 2 touchdowns. Houston falls to 4-12, and Tennessee improves to 11-5. That game was not supposed to be that close, but Tennessee survives. Tennessee survives, and they win the division thanks to that win. So, the Sunday night game, the Washington football team defeated the Philadelphia Eagles 20-14. This game, I tell you, Alex Smith for Washington was 22 of 32 for 162 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions for a QBR of 31.1 and a rating of 75.3. Gibson carried the rock 19 times for 75 yards. Sims had 5 receptions for 43 yards. For the Eagles, Jalen Hurts was 7 of 20 for 72 yards, no touchdowns, 1 interception for a QBR of 44.5 and a rating of 25.4. Boston Scott carried the rock 15 times for 65 yards. Jalen Hurts carried the rock 8 times for 34 yards and 2 touchdowns. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside had 2 receptions for 40 yards. Okay, so in this game, Philly falls to 4-11-1, and Washington improves to 7-9. Washington wins the division, the NFC least. What we've been talking about all year. They won a division at 7-9, and are headed to the playoffs. Now, the Eagles had a chance to win this game, and they bowled Jalen Hurts. Doug Peterson bowled Jalen Hurts in the 4th quarter, down by 3, and that was their only chance of winning the game. I'm not saying that they were gonna win that game anyways. I mean, I could see like Washington's D-line shutting it down in the clutch anyways, but that was their only chance they had. I would have given Jalen Hurts maybe like a 30% chance to win that game. 30% chance he wins the game. And then when they put Sudfeld in, less than 1% easily. So Philly, what did they gain by tanking this last game? And I think that they did tank it, no question about it. So if they would have won, they would have pick number 9. So now since they lost, they get pick number 6. They moved up 3 spots in the draft, and it's not like going from 4 to 1, okay? You went from 9 to 6, a little bit different. I think that there's been some backlash. There's been some significant backlash on that move, and I think for good reason. I think that Jalen Hurts should have finished the game, that he was the only chance to win that game, and it was a 3-point game in the 4th quarter, so I think that he should have played, but he didn't. They lost. The Giants, I can't imagine being a Giants fan watching that game. That's tough. That's really tough. But then there were some other meaningless games this week. The Las Vegas Raiders defeated the Denver Broncos 32-31. The New England Patriots defeated the New York Jets 28-14. The Minnesota Vikings defeated the Detroit Lions 37-35. And I think that about wraps up week number 17. The playoff picture is set.